Today science has become the reason for existence, and also at the moment possibly the most likely cause for the end of it. So science became a kind of intellectual hobby. It enabled human beings to find a new outlet, things to do, things to think about, and experiments to make that were wholly fascinating. So gradually, in the course of time, a sort of scientific philosophy came into existence, according to which the real purpose of life was the advancement of knowledge. Well, we have been trying to do that for a long time, and the more we advance, the more our affairs go backwards. So this doesn't seem to be a very good answer. Of course, politics as an answer to anything is virtually impossible. Nobody knows. So we are here in a condition in which we have very few definite supports. And yet we are here. And we are here for an approximate length of time. And time is the measure of opportunity. It is in time that we must succeed or fail. It is in time that we grow or decline. It is in time that the span of our lives can be measured within reasonable accuracy. So we have here a time, now approximately 80 years. This doesn't mean it's a limitation. People can live much longer. But on the general average, that's a fair point. Now this 80 years seems to be quite a span. In the eyes of nature, the universe, it is about 1 second. And the things that happen in a generation hardly register on the clock of universal events. But we do have this span of time. We have gradually lengthened it. We have made it much more interesting. We have done all kinds of things to use, abuse, misuse time. And yet we have it as a commodity. It really is about the only thing we bring with us as the basis of opportunity for growth, for improvement, or for the development of the individual or collective destinies of mankind. So we all have this time. Now when we say 80 years, we are not meaning that the individual has 80 years in which to do things. Far from it. Nearly a third of that time has to be used in sleep or rest. Another third of it has to be used to earn a living. And in early life, there's very little achievement. And towards the end of life, there is a weariness which doesn't want to labor too heavily. So out of the 80 years that we have, we are very lucky as individuals if we can call 1/4 of that free time. Time to do as we please. But off and on, barring accidents and incidents, we have about 20 years of man-made time in which to do what we were here to do in the first place. Something. We've got to do something with this time. We may want to simply get through it as quickly and as easily and as comfortably as possible. This seems to be the prevailing mode at the moment. Time is a disagreeable period. And the only thing to do to make it endurable is to waste it. And the better we waste it, the shorter life will be, and the longer we will have in which to pass into some oblivion we know not of. So all this brings up the point of today. Here we are with a small span of opportunity. Time to do something. Time to be something. With very little attention as to what we are going to do or what we're going to be. Now I would say that the majority of young people today, the majority, are so uncertain on this issue that they decide that the only thing to do is to have fun as long as they can. And fun becomes the way of filling up the active quarter of human life that is not occupied by inevitable pursuits. Fun now is all kinds of things. And today, fun is not what it used to be. In the older days, fun was largely a domestic household procedure. The small community made its own entertainments, and between birthday parties and Christmas and holidays and church festivals, the individual got the idea that he was enjoying himself. At least he thought he was doing fairly well. Today, most of these answers are gone. And today, fun is for the most part dissipation. Fun is the individual definitely and desperately trying to forget the reason for himself. And yet he has this self. He cannot explain it, but he knows it's there. He knows that this self in him is alive and is part of a greater life. He breathes, he thinks, he feels. Therefore, there is some part of himself that is in there as a conscious unit, a being. And this being is to the most part an annoyance. This being may have brought forward from the past a certain amount of moral tradition. It may also watch news reports and see what happens to people who abuse being and the trouble they get into. But having watched everyone else get into desperate trouble, the new viewer gets into the same trouble himself without a moment's hesitation. Actually, we are here without motivations, and yet we have opportunity. So one of the things we must admit about life is that for many people at least, life is a wasted opportunity. There should be something better we can do with it. There should be something about it that we can pass on as an achievement, so that our descendants will be glad that they are here and that we have made life better for them. So this problem brings up the great issue that we want to discuss, the proper use of time. And we must admit, I think, the old saying that time is not for wasting. And yet we are doing everything we can to waste it. Our entertainment is a waste of time for the most part. It has been highly philosophized that all these various programs indoctrinate us in great principles and truths and encourage us to avoid ills, but in practice it does not work that way. We simply sit glued to the tube, and whatever is on there we take, and we waste the time that we might be doing something with. Now, one of the reasons why we come to this conclusion is that every once in a while, an individual has an opportunity. He has a chance to do something bigger and better than he's ever done before, and he is totally inequipped to do it. He has not any background that is going to support a better level of living or thinking than he now has. He hasn't advanced his studies well enough to claim a better profession. He hasn't a deeper understanding of life with which to build a better home. He hasn't any basic moral integrities to impart to his children. And in the world of politics, he does not know who to vote for, and for the most part doesn't care. Now this is not good, and yet it comes about as the inevitable result of an unplanned life. Now you tell people today, young people especially, that life is something to plan for, and they will do everything they can possibly can to get rid of you. They do not want to plan. Life is not a series of events that have no relationship to each other and no meaning. To attempt to prove that life is meaningless is to gradually transform an interesting and remarkable existence into a state of meaninglessness. It is meaningless simply because we have destroyed the meaning ourselves. So out of this comes a gradual recognition that is taking over very strongly at the present time, that the life of fun, the life of do as you please, the life of give no thought to each other, all this type of thinking is definitely wrong and is producing definitely destructive results. This is the most active and most positive proof that we have that the universe is an integrated being, that the universe has integrities. One of the simple evidences bound through the ages has been that those things which have integrities receive natural support. Those that go against integrities destroy themselves. Nature does not give a victory to that which is not right. It gradually, inevitably, and remorselessly forces the individual, the generation, or the humanity back into line with truth and with fact. Now we're beginning to see this. We're beginning to see the young people we knew a few years ago starting out in life, and we see now that they are wrecks. We see that they have lost all their values, that the moral code is falling apart, and that freedom, as we call it today, is nothing but a travesty. It is the ability of the individual to do nothing. The right that he has to be wrong in every sense of the word. And this is simply not working out. If we could prove that a lawless generation lived better because it lived according to its own inner convictions, it would be different. But the moment the individual breaks away from the basic patterns of society, he is in trouble. And he will remain in trouble until he finally is brought back into line. So we see around us lots of young people today who are badly frightened. Frightened over narcotics. Frightened over many of the mores of modern living. Frightened of dissipation. And afraid of the weaknesses in themselves. The discovery of internal weakness can be a destructive factor, or it can be an inspiration for the individual to mend his ways. So time is the problem we have. This time is limited. This time is something that gives us only a few years in which to do something. Now we know that we have social responsibilities. We know that we have responsibilities to the bodily needs of the flesh in which we dwell. We know that we have to contribute to the support of society. We know that we have to have some kind of income or compensation for effort in order that we can live and eat and have shelter over our heads and educate our children. These are jobs. These are duties. But on account of the civilization we're in, most of the charm of these duties has disappeared. It used to be that many jobs were inspiring. It took something to be a good shoemaker, and when you were a master shoemaker, you were a person of consequence. Now this type of ability is comparatively lost. It is only in the arts, practically, that any individual initiative is recognized. For the rest, we are expected to become machine operators. We are expected to punch buttons. We are expected to follow the patterns of increasing industrial complexity. And at the same time, we are gradually being displaced. Little by little, we are losing our leadership over the machines that we invent. The reason, of course, is obvious. As we invent the machine, we give up our individuality. We try to depend upon the machine to think for us, work for us, and labor for us in order that we may do nothing and enjoy it. This isn't working out at all. We are gradually becoming unemployed because we are busy making a profit, creating the instruments that are going to displace us. We are doing everything possible on the ground that idleness is the supreme achievement, that the individual should spend his life having fun. So he's creating machines that take him out of work in order that he may have fun by not working. But fun without work is not very pleasant if you have no way of making a living. So we are just losing common sense. Many older people now are just trying to fill up time. They have no real initiatives, no values, and yet they have within them the most powerful force in the whole world, the human spirit. What is happening to it? It gets tired. It gets tired largely because it doesn't have any resources. If it really understands itself, it won't be tired. But if it understands nothing but a job, it will be tired. If it recognizes that as long as it can breathe, it can learn, life would be far more interesting. But we gradually overlook all this, and largely are over-influencing our own feebleness of age. With nothing to live for, there's very little for the body to do to help us. If, however, we keep on calling on resource, the body will continue to provide it. Maybe not completely, but enough to give us a very interesting and purposeful existence. So in this particular problem, it's a matter of finding out that we will live longer and better if we're doing something we believe in. If we're making some kind of an effort to help others, to advance the cause of good projects, if we are definitely engaged in meaningful activity that satisfies the mind, the heart, and the hand, we will have a much better chance of health. There's nothing that is more likely to produce a very serious health relapse than a life devoted to escaping responsibility. The more we escape, the more we compromise, the more we dissipate, the more likely it is that we will practically die on our feet because we have nothing left to live for. So now we come to this top problem of time. These hours that we have to ourselves are the opportunity for our cultural development. They are the period and time in which we can do the things that we want to do. But everything depends upon our wanting to do something that is worthy of a human being. It doesn't have to be a great and masterful achievement, but it has to be something that is a step ahead of the monotony of labor. It has to give some contribution to the involving and evolving of life. The individual has to do something, so the easiest thing for him to do is spend money, if he has it. And if he has it and can spend money, then he has the yacht and the condominium and all these things. But he is still bored. And these things do not constitute growth. They do not make a better person. And the purpose of time is to make it a part of growth. It is our growing time. And up at the present time, it has been largely a growing pain. We have not recognized the magnificent opportunity to do something that we can be proud of. There is no use trying to be proud of the fact that we are more eccentric than somebody else, or that we are in worse taste than our neighbor, or that we make more noise than anyone else in the community. These are not the tests. The tests are that we have proved conclusively that we are making use of potential. The human being has over 40 faculties within that skull of his, any one of which can develop an art or a science. He has all kinds of potentials waiting for something to do with them. And we all have the opportunity to spread out into the fields of emotional maturity. Our emotional lives are going to pieces also. There is no longer very much integrity in them. Emotion at the present time is simply a quick reflex to escape boredom. It is anything that the moment it becomes monotonous, it is broken up. There is no real effort to build these things as positive equations in life. We accept them as just another way of wasting time until we die. So out of all this time wasting, we are becoming a world of alcoholics, drug addicts, and what have you. The entire theory of life has fallen apart. Now, fortunately, in the midst of all of this, the prodding of inner conscience has begun to move things a little bit. More and more people every day have come to the conclusion that delirium tremens is not an achievement. Are they also beginning to realize that a series of divorces is not the symbol of a successful marriage? And also that children becoming minor delinquents are not proof that we're doing things well in the home. Little by little, we are beginning to realize something that we wanted to forget. And that is there are rules in here somewhere. There are rules that created us in the first place. They are rules that are magnificent in their potential. The rules far beyond anything that we can achieve or hope to achieve. We cannot keep the stars in their courses. We cannot prevent the changes of seasons. We cannot make any great variation in the laws of nature, but we don't need to. Most of these laws are working eternally for a purpose. And in these laws there is an integrity, even when the laws do not please us. If a law doesn't seem to please us, then we are inclined to change the law rather than ourselves. Now, if it's a man-made law, we can change it with a reasonable amount of discretion. But a divine law, we cannot change. In the case of a divine law, it intends to change us, and will do so at all cost. So in a universe in which man is trying to take over the divine prerogatives, but has never been able to control himself, there is a need for a new attitude toward time. The only chance we have to learn how to live in this world is to live in this world. The only way we can find out the better things of this world, the only way is to cultivate those better things, to become aware of them, become interested in them, become dynamically involved in them. Everywhere, the individual is now tempted to support trivia, and not the things that are necessary in life. And where we have good-heartedness, we also often have lack of discrimination, and the generous person is simply deceived and exploited. All of these things added together make a kind of a sad picture out of the noble creature which we call man. It just does something to prove to us that in some way we're not as far from the jungle as we thought we were. That actually we will never really achieve our humanity until our heads are in the air, are way up in the sky of truth, and our feet are on the earth. Man has been given the power to think, to dream, to create. And it is necessary for him to use these powers in their higher echelon of meaning, that they are to be used to achieve the more noble and significant actions. Looking back over the world's heroes, we find that those whom we most admire, who have gone before, have been those who have made a great and unselfish contribution to the common good. We accept their contribution with gratitude and quietly overlook the fact that we probably crucified them while they were here. We have got to get to the point where we honor integrities, where we can recognize values, and where we are resolved to grow. Now, this growth doesn't have to be a painful thing. Most people today are afraid to think. They're afraid if they start thinking, they're going to be miserable. The truth is, if they don't think better pretty soon, they're going to be miserable anyway. So that actually creative thought is a cure for misery, not a cause of it. The cause of misery is an individual situation in which the individual lives below the level of his own humanity, which he can't afford to do, because if he does, he'll be in trouble forever. So we've got now 2 hours a day to do a lot of things in. I think one of the things we ought to do is to gradually refine our attitude of what to do with time. We have 2 hours a day, and we have weekends, and we have occasional holidays, and we have various opportunities for doing something. So what are we going to do? Are we going on a picnic? It might be a nice idea if the whole family goes. But are we really trying to use this time to strengthen family life? Are we using it to try to improve our own abilities in a valuable way? Are we searching for idealism? Are we looking at a great landscape and seeing in a workmanship of divinity more beautiful than anything we can create? Are we trying to find life, our place in it? Are we trying not to be cast away on the desert island of materiality? We are trying to do something to make life beautiful, not only for ourselves but for others. Now, all children growing up, and young people, and for that matter, all old people, must learn to love beauty and love life as it is. Instead of going out to criticize everything they see and do, they've got to learn the dignities of life. They've got to learn to appreciate emotionally and mentally the beauties with which this world has been naturally endowed. The sunsets, the gardens, the flowers, the trees, these things are remedies for hate, suspicion, and despair. Little by little, the natural universe, if given an opportunity, can bring great consolation to our hearts and minds. We have to gradually learn that we live in a beautiful world, and if it looks a little otherwise, it's largely because of us. That actually we live in a well-disciplined pattern. We live in a world that is almost like a great clock in which everything runs on time. We are living in a world in which laws, rules, and patterns are highly protected. But we have taken the attitude that protection is a kind of imprisonment, that we are being protected from doing the things we want to do, when in reality we are protected from doing the things that we can't afford to do, but we don't realize it. Therefore, to cooperate with nature, to recognize the natural beauty of existence, to gradually cultivate the power to control all emotions that are destructive, will give us a new understanding of life. If we begin to see the beauty in things, we're not going to watch the things that are not beautiful. We're going to realize that asymmetry, discords, these things are the result of ignorance, of misunderstanding, and of excessive lack of discipline. We are going to realize that where the individual can't endure himself, can't live with himself, can't understand himself, he will make a loud noise. This doesn't solve anything, but it gets it out of his system, but only for a moment. 5 minutes later, he has to make another loud noise, and so on until he is too weak to continue the process. Actually, therefore, we have to recognize that time is a problem in health. Time means that we should do everything possible to maintain as good body health as we can for a reasonable length of time. That we should try to be able to face life with a certain amount of conserved vitality. If we waste everything we are on riotous living, we have no vitality, we have no health. And not only is health important toward the perpetuation of life, it is important for the moods in which we become involved. The individual who has lost his vitality, who is variously dissipated, run down, confused physically, and ailing most of the time, cannot have the proper internal adjustments with truth or reality. The life of the individual has in it no place to do nothing. It has no place to wander about in a fog. Whatever life we have is useful, must be useful to the day we die, and maybe a little longer if we really could understand all of it. But in any event, there should be no waste of time. Now, wasting time is not answer of joy. We do not have to make time a burden. Time is not a responsibility, it is an opportunity. With much time is good. There's time to have fun. There's time to be happy. There's time to serve the common good. But in all time, there must be growth. There must be something accomplished that makes us better for ourselves. If time can in the long run make us happier, then our happiness will be real. But if we depend for happiness upon dissipation, our happiness will be fatal to our survival. Little by little, we have to keep the rules if we want the rules to keep us. And these rules are that we've got to do things that mean something. That relaxation and time are for good, for happiness, for growth, for the development of potentials, and in some cases we find people of retirement age who go into a new business and make a success of it. But if the business has something for the common good, the older person who is no longer so much concerned with wealth is likely to be a very good servant to a common need. Everywhere to work together is good. Everywhere to use spare time for pleasant labors. So little by little we have to find the things that help to make life possible. And if we can do that, we will have a good life, and we will make proper use of time. It is here because it is the golden opportunity. Time goes by, and in the end, the hourglass runs out. But time, while it is here, reminds us of the saying of the old Greek sage, who on his deathbed was listening carefully to the gossip in the front room. They told him he might not be alive more than an hour, and it wasn't worthwhile to listen to gossip anymore. But he was up on his elbow with his hand curled behind his ear, and he said, well, I may be dead in an hour, but I'm alive now, and while I'm alive now, I can learn. And the use of knowledge and time to find out why we're here, and why it is that we need to be here, and what we can do about being here, and how we can help to fulfill a plan of which we are a part and from which we can never escape. If we begin to think in these types of terms, we will have better music, better art, better literature. We will find opportunities to find the refreshments of idealism, and we will not be continuously confronted by something that destroys our faith in ourselves and other people. The child can learn why he is here before people misinform him on the subject. He can learn why he should have a nice disposition, why he should learn, why he should study, and gradually the curriculum can be made into something that he will enjoy rather than resent. I think most children would be willing to accept a form of knowledge that would help them to grow into the right kind of people, to grow into the fulfillment of those natural impulses and instincts which we all possess. We want to be happy. We would like to have a nice home. We would like to have a successful marriage. We would like to have attractive, interesting children. And we would like to help to build them into characteristics which are good for them. We have lots of things we can afford to love, but they are not the things that hurt us. And if we will gradually build back some of the simple normalcies that sophistication has tried to destroy, we will not be one of those who has to face the future as an addict of cocaine. It is all part of an escape from self, when in reality that kind of self that the individual is trying to escape is the truth in him which he is trying to deny. So if we keep these thoughts in mind, work with them a little all the time, I think in time we'll find something in time that makes it very good that we have been given this allotment of opportunity, for that is what it is. It is a time set aside to the privilege of growing up, growing into the beautiful realities which we have all dreamed about, growing and making come true the fairy tales of childhood. We can make things beautiful, but we can only do it if we gradually improve ourselves. And because of the kind of laboring world we live in, we have restricted opportunity and time to do all these beautiful things. We can do most of them, however, if we do not waste the time. And that's it, folks.